So talking about who and what we are, one of the big problems with working that out is our lack of recognition of that and those cultures, that each one of them is a different culture. So Aboriginal people aren't just one mass, they're different cultures. So when we start to, Aboriginal people can quickly say, oh, that person's from that place, and they always identify each other by country and familial relationships. So all of that makes absolute sense to the people that I've been working with. So my mask performance thesis is a film called Mask Robberies in the Northwest of Australia. We have an incredible mask tradition in Australia, unbelievable, and it's really unknown. It's not really celebrated for a couple of reasons. One, because it's part of the cultural prejudice against Aboriginal people as not being,
people.
Certainly not civilised. Their cultures are primitive. It's relegated to that basket and put into museums rather than, except once you start getting desert art, which is taken on by New York art houses, and it's suddenly millions and millions of dollars.
No, Australia was Terranayas.
Exactly, all of that. So there's all of that argument.
Contested area.
But the other thing is then an over-respect or a lack of understanding with respect, saying we can't deal with that because that's sacred business and it doesn't become part of theatre. So part of my work and my interest is in us breaking down those barriers and understanding where we can join in a really incredible conversation and how it might fit in with Commedia dell'arte, for example. So I'm going to go back to almost where you finished with Devil. So in the performances that I documented, the key character or the key figure is a figure called the Devil who comes to a poet in a dream and tells the story that is then turned into a performance. This happens right across the country. It still happens today. It's been happening for a long time. It's the transmission of performance practices. There's an element of I say poet because they are the conduits. They're the people who receive these from a recently deceased ancestor who tells them the story complete. The rest of it starts with the family, the close family first of all. They identify it as a real one because it has information in it that they couldn't possibly know, and they're delivering that information, and then they have to get into the production process of mounting a performance and getting it up and getting the whole community involved, and then these things have weight, and if they're good, they can travel to different places and people buy them, and there's a healthy tradition of copyright and acknowledgement of performance practices. So far, that's kind of there, and Commedia dell'arte is here. They're separate. But where are the similarities? So the similarity is in you're saying the three things are politics or socialisation, animals, and devil. You kind of put those things out there. I'd say that devil thing, in these stories, the devil is the recently deceased ancestor who comes back and talks to that poet in a dream. It's not someone far removed. So the dreaming isn't some mythical past. It's like here, it's beside you, it's with you. And that connection, I'm sure, is the same connection that we're talking about with these masks. I'm working with my colleague at
because I talked too much about other things, but one of the things I was saying is there is a sense of the archaic, there is a sense of ancestors, there is a sense of the past mystery within the mask, which you can be too facile with the mask, and it's you just have to know somewhere back around that that's what you're doing, so sometimes weird shit happens.
I think Levi Strauss was onto something. His project is fantastic, but he never got to follow it through. The idea that there are the stories around the world of traditional peoples have commonalities, but it's so big and so wide that you can't. I don't think anyone can do it. It would have to be a computer program in the future that starts to map out that.
So there is stuff. There is stuff like that. I mean, there's Joseph Campbell's. So, but there's also somebody. No, I'll tell you later.
Yeah.
So the Western Christian thing, the devil is a bit of a loaded word.
Yes.
Maybe more we're talking about Camille Parling is the daemon.
I'm not sure because the
original, before civilization, before we became what we are, the base, the rawness that informs us.
That's what we're talking about. But when I'm jumping in on there, I'm thinking of the medieval morality plays. The fun character is the devil. No, it's a real devil, but in the cultures that I work in, there are multiple layers of the devil. There's the real person who died recently who comes back, but then that spirit has different layers of some's malevolent, some is high spirited that goes to a special kind of beautiful place, and there's multiple layers of what that spirit is. So you're right in opening it up to a bigger context. But I'm just thinking back to medieval morality plays. If I got a choice of a character I wanted to play, I would definitely play the devil. So the most interesting.
Judas.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly.
Pilot.
So my proposition here is what I'd like to do is share with you like a trajectory, my personal trajectory with Commedia dell'arte to arrive at this point through doing some exercises, so that we do exercises to take us through. So the first thing I want to start off with is okay. So I think Karina's questions about, and you've asked the same thing too, why are you doing it and what's your location? I want to come back to Scott Ludlam and filming this thing. It doesn't matter that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people here. It's the intent of the thing, and this is a very powerful medium. Just being able to, for other people who are interested and who didn't know about this conference, which I'm sure there are lots of. I mean, Australia's full of people interested in Commedia dell'arte, but they're all spread out in different reasons in different places. School teachers are really the one connecting force because they have to teach it in school. So I think that's a positive way of potentially bringing things together through HSC. I'm not sure if that's what's going to happen. You work in that environment, so you're sort of well placed to do that.
And it's actually in the Canadian. It's actually in the Canadian national curriculum as well, which you can find online.
We have similarities there to join with them.
Yeah. Nikki Pasquetta on one of the Commedia groups.
We should be doing that. We should be making those connections. So yeah, great. We'll talk about that this afternoon.
Are we live, Tony?
What's that?
Are we live on Facebook?
Yes, live.
Yeah. Shout out to Kate Meehan to get another Commedia chat group going.
Yes, right. So I'm starting off with this thing that I'm calling separate, but in fact there's a tradition around south of Broome in ceremony where they have icebreakers, and these icebreakers are called mumia, and they wear elastic bands on their faces, and they come into the middle of a very serious ceremony and disrupt and cause havoc. So that's one tradition I know about that's getting close to what we're talking about here. So what other, I guess my question that I came into this this forum to explore was what are the essential things that we can share across the board, and how do we really start with making it Australian? I'll look at masks a little bit later, but I reckon the guts of it is love. If you're going to do something worthwhile, what transcends everything? And I have this foolish belief that love transcends all. Now, my disclaimer, the lovers aren't necessarily proposing that love. Often the lovers are more concerned with their own concept of what they think love should be, that they impose on each other, and they can be really cruel in that. However, I think the erudite speeches that they were capable of giving, Isabella Adriani, who a lot of work has been done on, and who unfortunately died in childbirth with her 8th child, is this incredible example that sort of comes up all the time of this person who stood on stage and people just fell in love with her. Just that, it's that thing, this thing where someone steps on stage and immediately everyone, their heart pours out to this thing. So I think I've spent a lot of time working on the 7 deadly sins, but I've neglected the graces, and I think the virtues of the graces are incredibly important in the Commedia dell'arte, to have the contrast so that you can touch upon this thing which is in an age where it's all war, all our kids are playing war games, everything is kind of, there's no money for this, everything is driving us down. the things that open us up are...
One of the things that Carl also, it says one of the fundamental principles of commedia is contrast, always. So you always look, just as a dramaturgic tool, but from what you're saying, there's a spiritual dimension to it as well. But in terms of, this is something I need to look more into, but there's an area within the old style of commedia dell'arte. There's a concept. I think I'm not sure. I think it's Horatian virtue, like as expressed with Machiavelli, the sense of virtue, which is something. Which is a sense of you're neither not too much of one thing, not the other. You're a perfectly balanced, perfectly balanced human being. And those were represented within commedia as the unmasked characters, while the imbalanced characters were the grotesques. Were represented as the masked.
That's a great kick-off.
And that's, so you're showing the dynamism of humanity between
self-actualization and...
Okay, let's do it. This is the first exercise, and you've taken us into the first exercise, which is the lovers, because the lovers are off balance. That's the thing. I'll go through a process, but yeah, so jump up, stretch your legs.
Cox is getting up early just in case it's time.
So I'll go through and I'll give my attributes to the way that I've arrived at and my story as we go through. So hopefully that will make more sense at the end. I am taking some exercises from other people, but others I've developed, and it's all kind of a pedagogy that I'm using at the moment. So we'll need that. We'll need to move everything. Jamie, I'll move your chair. So that we have the full use of this space backwards and forwards to here. So we'll move from here down to here. And just for this exercise, we have women at one end and men at the other. So may I say that if we're doing exercises, can we be careful not to, so just take a step further forward, and that's kind of a limit, you don't want to go any further than that. Because I always ask that people give 100%, so that when you go into it, you can give 100%, but that's always the awareness that you're not going to bump into anything or anybody else. This exercise is set up for this thing that I think is the critical part of it. If you don't have this in the commedia dell'arte, you don't have it, which is that sense that you're elevated with love, but it's slightly off balance. So it's in that position. So the exercise is you imagine that you're going to go on you're a trapeze artist, you're going to trapeze, you're swinging out into the middle, and there's another trapeze from the other side. And at this point here, you're going to let go out to the audience in perfect suspension as far as you can go, and then grab the other one, and then come down to the other side. So this moment here is what we're looking for. This moment of suspension as you grab for that, the other one that while you're flying in the air, and you do it all out that way. So,
how do you get one hand? Because
absolutely, no. Exactly. So how do you manage with your injuries? This is the inevitable problem with a physical theatre, and a question that I will leave you with at the end comes to this point. So, be careful. So you're going to do it towards each other, but in the gaps. So you're not going to hit each other. You're all going to go at the same time. There's going to be this wonderful moment where you all suspend, out, catch the thing, and then go over to the other side. Are you ready? And off you go! Down, suspend, out here, and then go, yeah, that's it. Don't worry that you missed the actual thing itself, it's about the suspension in the moment there. So we'll just do one more time. But if someone's in front of you, of course, you're looking out to the audience, don't worry about, you will get the one that's going to take you on. So, yes, that's right, one hand is good. Are you ready? And off you go. Down you go, and up. Suspend, out, yes. Out here. Good. So when you look out, you're actually looking at me, but everybody else. So it's not like that, it's like fully out. So that's the moment, we'll just leave that. So that's the moment that I think you have to get in all things you're doing. So going back to the cock and father, because that's a tradition, father went to the cock. Hey?
It was a third year student.
Yep. The pedagogy, that's right. So if you just stand in first position and then tilt to one leg, lovers are always off balance because that's what life does to you. This is the classical thing. And I think it helps. So what I'm talking about is exercises that can help you position. Yes, back. And you that way. So that sense that you're lifting up and out, and that you are really actually about to go. I think that's a really wonderful, simple, and with all of these exercises, and we're going to do some of the fibre-based movement exercises, just to help you know the sensibility of it. And then we will come back to Tony Deshoy's thing, which I used as well. Forget any of the stuff that happened before 1945, because essentially we don't really know. It's all contextual. Except we do know, because we have silent clowns, we have all the theatrical traditions that are passed through morality. How much you believe, how much you don't is up to you, but we definitely have a lot of silent clown stuff from the very beginning of last century to look at. Okay, so that's the lovers. While we're here, let's stay on the floor. I'll move across into just the kinds of exercises that Faber teaches, which are, so let's go from the lovers to the decking to the old people. The old people, it's pretty straightforward, don't want to ever fall over, so their movement goes foot into, articulates through the foot, and then it's the reverse moonwalk. You do it as close together as possible. And you go right through heel, middle of the foot, toes, heel, middle of the foot, toes, and the other, and then see how fast you can get it, so that that's it, that's the way, and as close together as possible. So, one of the things with Commedia dell'arte and with ballet, with all stylized performances, there's this sensibility that the bottom half of your body is able to do whatever you want it to do, but the top half is moving like this. Except for with Brighella, which Brigella's the one that they say does that because supposedly as a Turk comes from a different country and has a different sensibility, so that's why Brigella's potentially dangerous, because he's Turkish. He's Turkish. He's Turkish, that's right. He's one of them. Islam. So with the, I think just try that sense of the old person's walk again, because with all of this, what you're trying to do is get, okay, so we get why people do that, because they don't, if you take a big step, you might fall over and break your hip and then you're done. That's it. You're in hospital and that's bye-bye. So, the little step, but how can you do the little step and keep the top half of your body, active so that it's not stuck with the, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, let's move out of the old people. And you move that however you want to. Into the lower half movements for the Capitanis, which are the full extension, lift that foot, and then push that a little bit further as you go down. So up, out, and even further out. Yeah. It's the big stretch. That's it. Nice. Yep. Okay, I'm talking about the absolute cliches in all of this, but definitely a useful movement training system as a start. In Father School, he does all this kind of training in the mornings and the afternoons. You forget all that and start working on Canavaci, and you start making up your own stories using contemporary versions of the same thing. But this is to get you in the idea that it must be stylized. You need stylized voices, you need stylized movement. So how do you break people who are traditionally stuck with neighbours and television-sized performances? It's the big issue. So get bodies moving, get them out, get them happening. The Brighella move. So that's elbow to knee. So you're trying to sort of stay straight, but your head is going to go up and down, which is different to the others, which stay straight the whole time. So this kind of movement. Yeah, that's it. the twisting movement. Quite different to the others. Yeah, good. Okay, and then for all of them, mainly the servants, is the trait passé movement, which is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So to get across the stage, you never walk normally. You always find a stylized way to walk. So trait passé, right? You've done that before. Yeah. That's so easy. Can you do the trait passé with stuff? Tell us, just what stuff can you do with the trait passé? What could you be doing? Whatever. So that's the bottom half of your body. What can the top half of your body be involved in? Whatever, yeah. Carrying things, doing whatever. Just try it out. Yeah, exactly. That's right, yeah. Precisely. Oh, excellent. You guys are so on top of that. Look, so let's reform. Sorry, I have to get this and sit up the other way. The other way. Turn it around.
There's 10 million people outside.
Hello. Let's sit down again. Are we okay to sit down?
Oh, sorry. I need my little chair. Sorry.
See, girls can do it just like in heels.
So it's all very well to have the movements. The movements aren't the thing. They're just tools to warm you up and to get you involved in what you're doing. So the questions for the old people: how do you get young people to play old people? It's not easy for anybody, for any actor. One of the things I constantly, you have to stand up for a minute.
Yeah.
One of the things I kind of say and do physically is, I'm going to ask you to just walk normally, but I'm going to put my full weight on you and you're going to resist it as if I'm some kind of burden that's stuck on your shoulders.
Yeah.
Okay.
Going so.
Yep, you go where you want to. Now just walk normally like you would. Try to resist that. So, okay, stop. So now replicate that without me on you. Well, that's great because you're not acting it, you're remembering the physicality of the weight on your body. And it's that resistance as an old person without. It's that resistance. I shan't. With knees that creak, with all the things that are. You're trying to stand up against the world, and the world is trying to pull you down. So that's what I work with young people who need to play old people, because if you're trying to go like this, that's exaggeration, and I love the fact that you talk about with masked amplification. I always use that too. Yeah. It's the real thing amplified. So you might turn it up to 11, but that's still amplified. It's not something you don't want to get into a conversation where people are using exaggerated and we mean the same thing. I don't want to stop people, but it's a much better term, I think, than exaggeration, because you need to find a way to get your body to respond to those movements. So the Lecoq School offers you a whole palette of ways that your body can change. And changes everything. Bascule, that's the word in French, which means flip. So bascule is everything. When we talk about psychology, if Lecoq says psychology, he meant that you're thinking about it and we can see you telegraphing those thoughts and you're already behind the mark. That is not what the Russians mean when they say psychology. So it's words getting in the way of what's getting on. I worked in St. Petersburg at the Institute of Dramatic Art and Cinematography, and they do 6 years of acting training. The first year, animals. That's all they do first year. So essentially the kinds of languages that everyone is exploring, it's the same thing. Everyone is looking for the same thing, which is to see a body in an empty space take on different forms. So the Lecoq idea is that, okay, my body needs to be fluid, so now I need to find a way that I can find my body being more like water, or like air, which is different again, has a different form, or like earth, or like fire, which is kind of, So how does your body, in a second, move into those different kinds of shapes and gesture and sensibility? So that's the training ground. Okay. Let me go. So our trajectory, and my trajectory from Rusden, where I was inspired to just muck around with masks, was we started playing with masks. So I reckon your approach, which is pick up a mask, no predetermined ideas, and try it out. But that's not quite helpful enough. So what the first exercise that I started working with was pick up a mask, look at one defining feature, and take that feature from the tip of your head to your toes, and let your body move with that. Don't worry about the sound, just get the weight, the shape of that mask through your whole body. In the mask work that I've been looking at all across the world, a lot of what we do is focus on the face. Mask work isn't about the face, it's about the whole body, and that's what Faber's on about when he says it doesn't matter about the mask. I personally think when you have a piece of leather which was a live animal, and it's sitting there in front of you that's shaped by an artist, and it's had people's faces in it, a piece of living body, that there is more to it than just, like he'll put his hands through the eyes, and it's a tool as far as he's concerned. I am much more of the belief that there is, in objects, there is power. So that's me personally. It shouldn't stop this conversation.
Or is it conduit?
That's exactly, well, I use the word portal for masks. I think conduit is great. It shapes very quickly so people go, yes, I know what that is, and as long as the person is feeling that, then we're all tapping into the same.
It can just be a mask, but it can.
Yeah, so it can be multiple things. You can use it as a disguise.
Yeah.
But I think portal is a really useful.
Yeah, you can. No, you
That's right. That's right. I think
I used to tell my students sometimes that the mask is just like you are fully dressed to go to a reception or a ceremony or something, and then before you go out, you put your hat on.
that's it.
So everything is already prepared, everything is set. The mask is the hat. It's the last final detail of your preparation.
I'm even thinking that it's the process of getting prepared for that thing, and while that puts the icing on, does the final moment, that it is everything, and it's because that informs the way that your body moves in the space, and also the history you bring with it. All of those things. One of the big arguments in African masks that has been a conversation for the last 20 years in academia is the way that Europeans took the head object and prized them as art objects without any reference to where it came from and the rest of the body. Often there are intricate designs for the rest of the body that go with it.
Yeah,
and
the jumbies were huge.
there's still incredible traditions. And when you come to Australia, you have to be really aware of that, because when we talk about masks in Australia, it's big. It's really...
Well, John Wright described the way masks work, or described the effect on a masked person, is that we are culturally attuned to look at someone's face with our main vision, but actually our peripheral vision is interpreting the face through the whole body language. So we're picking up expression, but we're also picking up is the body language matching the face. So we look at the face, but always we interpret through our peripheral vision.
I think it's more than I think absolutely the peripheral vision, but I think it's more than that, because the whole neutral mask exercise is that. It's about they started with Capot started with just wrapping material around the face, and then it became more formalised. And when I say Capot, I want to also reintroduce the idea that lineage. So let's go with Faber and go backwards, or Clementi, go back to Lecoq. So Lecoq. Yeah, so you go back to D'Aste, you go back to Michel Saint-Denis, but I wouldn't go back to Capot, I'd go back to Suzanne Bing. Suzanne Bing is the person who really was doing the pedagogy and developing the ideas about play. What we're all doing is playing. Like, essentially, it's the guts of everything that we're doing is if you're not playing on stage, the audience don't get it. But you can't play unless everyone knows what the rules are. So we're in a fix when you don't set up the rules clearly, and then we don't know what the skill involved in is within that. And that's what the sport analogy is. That people love sport because they know the rules really clearly, and they can see the skill and the art within the framework of the rules.
And I would say the games get formulated by the purpose you want to put comedy to. Because once you start to build up an edifice for a reason, you can change rules, but they always change because they're making sense, because There's a reason behind it.
That's it. You have to have a reason for what you're doing. The ongoing reason that I want to be drawing to all the time with us is, first of all, what is the commonality for everybody? And so that's why I start with love. I think love has to be the common purpose that we generate them as performers and actors. If we're not generating that message somehow through what we're doing, let's lampoon everything, let's make fun of love, let's make fun of everything, but let's still have some sensibility that people do have a reason to be together. Otherwise, what is the purpose? So that's fundamental to the thing, that sensibility of it. And if you can get your audience to do that with that moment, and I'll draw your attention to the fact that that could be with the old people, doesn't have to be with the young ones. It can be with anybody on the stage, and I think that's the beauty of it. If you can see for a moment an old man or an old woman fall in love, and you have the same sense of lift as we were doing in that exercise there, I think that's a really beautiful thing to be aiming for, that heightened moment in that. That draws me back to women. You talked a little bit about women. At the Lecoq School, he would not let women do Aokino. They weren't allowed to put on the Aokino mask. So why? It's this whole man thing. So I completely disagree with that. And also, when I went to school, my command piece, I did 2 years there. A week before my command piece was up, he said, Commedia dell'arte only for the real experts. You have to do 20 years of theatre before you even touch that. So I'd already prepared my command piece in Commedia dell'arte, and he just said that. Anyway, it went well, and so luckily that kind of... So the command that he gave us, or gave me, was quand on recommence, c'est jamais pareil, which means when you start again, it's never the same. And that's really true. And that's been a kind of life guiding force. So, in Australia, it's about not taking this as a colonial approach, not looking to thrust Commedia dell'arte on who we are, but recognising that in Australian Aboriginal traditions, we have already unbelievable, rich public performance traditions that we need to be looking at before we thrust anything on, I think. So it's a matter of a greater awareness of where we live and who we live. So the geography is incredibly important, but at the moment we still live in a fairly parochial, it's an anglicised sense of the country. We live in two countries really. We live in the city country, which is like any city in the world, and we live with the north of Australia, which still has traditional practices heavily going on, and in the south of Australia, lots of Aboriginal communities revitalising culture. These conversations are not separate from what we're doing in our work. I think we need to find the reasons and ways to fit in these characters into that framework. So, is anyone prepared to jump up, pick one of those masks, and choose one physical aspect of it, and then try it out? Like normally I'd try and have a entry and exit point.
Well, yes, but others should have a go first.
But in this instance where we have no entry and exit, we can do that by
Backstage door.
Well, or by starting with your back turned away, putting on the mask, and when you're ready, turning around. But I'd like to ask anyone who was prepared to do it to take the mask and choose one feature. One feature. This is the starting point. Yep, do you want to do it? Yeah. Okay. Choose one feature and let that drive you from head to toe.
Oh God. The mess they left behind. The debris everywhere. It was broken. It was all frozen.
Okay, stop, turn around. Stop, turn around. Take mask off. Right, so, this is the kind of critique I use. I'm going to get stuck into you. Okay?
Yeah.
So, forcing you have an immediate response.